As Chantal said, it's been a long time coming and we're finally here. So we're really excited. So before we get into the actual discussion, I'll allow Lorraine and Nicole just to introduce themselves so you can understand what it is that they bring to the table today, because they're going to take us through the conversation and guide us just based on their experience. But as Chantal said, we want it to be interactive. So we don't want you to just sit and listen to us talk for the next 45 minutes. We want to also hear some of your questions, hear some of your experiences. So please feel free to interact with us in the chat. So I'm going to ask Nicole to kick us off, just give us a brief intro, and then we'll ask Lorraine to do the same, and then we can get into the discussion.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Spence-Boone, and I am an Agile coach at Excella in the Washington, D.C. area. I have been working in IT for over 20 years and working in the Agile world for over 10 years now, I think. And I really enjoy being part of this larger Agile community. So I'm a part of a couple of different groups, DC Women in Agile and Agile in Color. And I'm also from Jamaica. I was born in Montego Bay, not Kingston, because even though I'm from Jamaica, my brother-in-law calls me country because I'm not from Kingston. But anyways, Montego Bay, and I wish I was there right now.
All right, perfect, Nicole. Lorraine?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lorraine Chambers. Similar to Nicole, I've been in the fintech industry for about 20 years. I've had various roles from client services. I've been a product owner. I've worked in QA. Most recently, I'm a Scrum Master at FactSet. I've been a Scrum Master for about 2.5 years. And I'm very excited to be a part of the Agile Caribbean Link Up. And my roots are from Jamaica as well. My parents are from St. Catherine and St. Mary, so we country too. It's all right, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. And here we have similarities as well. We have both our guest speakers are from Jamaica, so big ups. So we're going to get right into the discussion. So just to set some context, today we're talking about cross-functional teams. But what we want you to take from the conversation, even though Lorraine and Nicole, their background is primarily in tech and software development, we don't want you to believe that what we're talking about is only applicable to those teams, or is it only applicable to Agile teams? I mean, any team that you're working on, we hope coming from this discussion, from this conversation, that you will realize the value that can be gained from engaging in some of these practices that we'll be going through. So we're going to jump into the meat of the conversation. Just a reminder, any questions that you come up with, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to field them as we go along. So the first question that we have, we're talking about cross-functional teams. First thing that we'd want Lorraine and Nicole to chime in on is, what does it mean to be a cross-functional team? What is that definition?
Lorraine, you want to start?
Start off. Just basically, anyone on the team is able to do the basic tasks of anyone else. Of course, you're going to have your subject matter experts, but at the bare minimum, you would like for everyone on the team to be able to do some of those foundational tasks. So everything that needs to be done can be done within the team. So that's what I think of when I think of a cross-functional team on a high level.
Yeah, I mean, I just piggyback on that. You know, I feel that it's really a self-contained unit. All of the people who are in the team are capable in completing the work or the goals that needs to be done. So they don't need help from any external people or persons to get the work done. You know, they each might have different functional expertise, but in the end, they can use all of their expertise together to achieve that common goal.
Okay, so in a nutshell, then it sounds like a cross-functional team. They have everything that they need to get from starting the work to completing the work. in a
Yes.
nutshell.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to unpack it a little bit because I know that up until recently, especially if, well, I can speak for Jamaica because I'm living in Jamaica, but I'm assuming for the Caribbean as well. When we thought about our teams, they were mostly made up of specialists. So for example, if I am a UI person, I may have been assigned to a UI team. So I'm not interacting with the other persons who are involved in the process. So of course that leads to, for example, trade-offs and so forth. So in us talking about cross-functional teams, what I want us to unpack a little bit is what are some of those characteristics that you're looking for? What does a cross-functional team look like? If you perhaps want to delve a little deeper and talk about, give an example in terms of a day-to-day, what does a cross-functional team, how would that team look?
Well, I mean, be biased because I work in IT, but our team is usually, from a software development perspective, is usually made up of like some developers, maybe a business analyst. It might have a UX person, and it may or may not have a tester. Sometimes the business analyst can also do all the testing. So those things are not fixed. But the key here is not so much of the specific role itself, it's really about a set of skills. So once you put all of these people together, do they have enough skills to get the job done without adding or going to anybody else? And part of that, having the skills is not the only thing that you need to be a cross-functional team. I mean, you also have to create some of the environment to foster that. So, some good communication, some psychological safety. And for those who are familiar with Scrum, some of those principles and values are part of the Scrum values in terms of the things that make a cross-functional team work well, is basically having the courage to, speak up or have opinions when they have to work through a tough problem, and not just have a group think where everybody agrees all the time. Using those different perspectives in order to achieve their goals, not just a mediocre level of achievement, but really being a high performing team.
And just quickly to add on to that too, everything I agree, Nicole, everything what you said, but also too, another characteristic of a cross-functional team is to be self-organizing as well and empower the team to decide what they want to learn and what they want to work on as well. So, empower the team. If, going back to your example, Nicole, if there's like a UI developer, empowering that person to self-organize and maybe work on a back-end task and vice versa. So that's just the one point I would add to that as well, as far as the characteristics for a self-organizing team. I'm sorry, a cross-functional team.
I think in both of your responses, though, you started to touch on the importance of the type of environment that you need to foster. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, because Nicole, you mentioned psychological safety. And I can tell you from our perspective, it's a term that's being thrown around now, but I'm not really certain if persons understand what it means when you say create psychological safety for a team in order for them to perform and become a high performing team. So can you delve a little bit more into that, either you ladies?
Sure. Lorraine, I don't know if you want to go first.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. So in terms of psychological safety, it kind of continues on what I was talking about with some of the Scrum values. What you're trying to do is create a space where everybody feels safe enough that they can speak up, right? And that there'll be another person who's trying to speak over them or believe that they have all the answers. It's really creating an agreement among the people who are on the team to say that we are going to create this environment of respect and being open and honest and being focused on our work. And those things can come together when you're just standing up a new team. Like if you're creating some team agreements, you can decide what are those things, or what are kind of like the house rules for your team. So that can aid in creating that safety for the team. So if you all agree and determine how you all are going to handle conflicts, right? When things bubble up, as they will, if you have developed those kind of agreements from the get-go, then you can always point back to that. And so everybody is on the same page about how they're going to handle problems. But it's really about making an agreement as a team that we're going to create that environment of respect for each other, because we know that everybody on this team is valuable, has skills, are very bright, and it's really about acknowledging that and making sure that everybody on the team acknowledges that.
Absolutely. And just also developing that environment of trust. So, your team may, a team member may tell you something. They have to be able to trust you with that as well. Maybe something that they're struggling with. They shouldn't be mocked or laughed at, but encouraged, and see how they can improve. So that would also help with psychological safety. And if there's something that they're struggling with, not sharing that, with people that don't need to know about that. And so they'll trust you more, they'll trust the team members more, and they will also grow as well.
I think one of the things I heard you mention, Lorraine, is the fact that if they're struggling with something, so becoming a cross-functional team, what does that look like? Because as Nicole mentioned, it's about making sure that as a team, we have all the skill sets. So what does it mean if I come on the team as a specialist? So for example, if I'm on a marketing team and I'm perhaps a specialist for SEO, what does that mean then if as a team we decide that, okay, let us ensure that we have a full team that can build out a campaign that can serve across, digital channels, traditional channels, and all the works. What does that mean for me now trying to, perhaps learn something new that I'm not comfortable for? And how should that team proceed? Or how, as a team leader, coach, a scrum master, or anything, how do you help that person and the team to understand what is required?
Well, you could start off with maybe some smaller tasks. There may be some low risk projects or tasks that maybe you can work on with maybe that subject matter expert. There could be an opportunity to shadow them. If we're talking about IT or software, there could be an opportunity to do pair programming or mob programming. Even if code reviews or reading over documentation, that may be a way to kind of get your feet wet in something that you may be less comfortable with. Take on those tasks, and until you actually start doing something, you're never going to know how it goes. So just stick your foot in and try it out. But also that goes back to the safety, psychological safety as well. And the people on the team need to know that it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake or to slow down a little bit. So team, Nicole is trying something new. It may take a little longer. There may be a risk or some issues, but it's okay, because the benefit will outweigh the slowing down in the long run.
All right, so I'm going to just pause a quick moment just to ask if there are any questions based on what has been discussed so far. I mean, we have just been setting up the foundation to say what a cross-functional team looks like practically before we get deeper into the conversation. So I want to ask, are there any questions?
I have one I can throw out there. My name is Karen. Yellow or Jamaican. My family's from Barbados. Hi. Okay. Okay. So How can a cross-functional team become self-managing, to Lorraine's point, and also psychologically safe when you have a range of different experience levels within the team? So say you have like some junior people mixed with some senior people, what's the recommendation there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot where there are some more senior people and junior people. And I know I've experienced firsthand that a lot of the senior folks don't want to spend time training. The more junior folks, they like just want to be heads down in their work. But I think if you, for one, present it in a way that it's a mutual beneficial relationship in being teacher and student, then there can be gains there. So for example, usually like some of the things that Lorraine was saying in terms of pair program, mod program, where you're, are shoulder surfing learning. For the more senior people on the team, you can present this as a growth opportunity. For example, if they're looking to move up into more senior roles or leadership roles, there's an understanding that as you go into leadership, that you are going to either be responsible for supervising people or mentoring people. And this is just like one of those first steps for them, right? It's like if you can successfully mentor these junior people on your team or train them or teach them what they need to get going, it's really just about getting them started. I think then that could be something that's really more palatable for senior folks who are just used to focusing on their work and just getting their work done. And then, but it doesn't come easy. I'm not saying that this is like snap your fingers and it'll happen. It takes work, and it takes the commitment from everybody on the team to get on board to make this happen. But that's just one angle for encouraging more senior people on their team to help the junior people on their team.
And also to add to that, it's risk averse as well. Let's be realistic. People leave. People leave their company, they resign. They may go on holiday, whatever the case may be. So, it would be beneficial too for maybe that more senior person to cross train that more junior person, because then if, someone moves on, they have someone else to cover that gap. So that's just something that another benefit to the team as well.
All right, sounds good. I guess that segues into, well, we have started to answer that question actually in terms of what if it is that you come up on a team member who is resistant. So you started to talk about, based on how you angle it, the career opportunities, but practically, what else can work on the ground based on the experiences that you have had? Because as you mentioned, Nicole, it's not a snap your fingers and it's all perfect. It's like for some of us who work with software development teams, that our developers would pretty much prefer to be heads down and just focus on whatever it is that they're working on, churn it out and move on. But no, when you're fostering a cross-functional team, it's a lot of collaboration, it's a lot of communication. So it's not just heads down focused on what I am doing. I need to work closely with the rest of the team. So what have you found works well for you when you're trying? Even if it is that it may not be a senior developer, it may be a junior developer and it's the first you're working in a space like this. What else could you possibly try?
Well, in true Agile fashion, pose things as an experiment to try, right? If you pose something as an idea that's temporary, right? This is the rule of law and this is going to be how it is for everything, that's not going to work. But if you can frame it in a way where, you know, we're not going to commit to doing this forever, but let's just try this for a period of time. Like, you know, this might be something that bubbles up in retros, and retros are a perfect example of coming out with action items of things to try and giving it a window of time to see whether or not, you know, the technique that you're going to try is successful. So that can be a technique to at least open the door for people to be amenable to give some room for a different learning method that they might not be used to if they haven't been in an agile environment before. So experimentation is very important, because people feel, well, if it's not going to be like this forever, I can at least try it and see. And then, you know, you can get them involved in the solutioning, right? If, for example, whatever you decided to experiment with as a training method or mechanism, and the feedback from them was, I didn't really like that, then you can ask them, it's like, well, what else do you think we should try to get to this goal? Because I feel like if you have more engagement from the individuals involved in what the solution is, that they'll be more committed to moving forward with it.
I like that. Yeah, definitely you want to get their buy-in, you know, let them be involved in that process. And if you can also maybe get leadership or management involved, maybe they could be incentivized, maybe as a goal for their upcoming goals when they do their performance reviews and things like that, maybe be incentivized to maybe help someone else on the team. That could be something that they could be aiming for as well. So, you know, even if they may be resistant or maybe apprehensive in some way, maybe the fact that they know that, you know, maybe a goal that they would be accountable for, that might kind of help. And, you know, they could try to experiment, like Nicole said, and hopefully they'll be less resistant going forward.
Definitely. And I see persons in the chat also agreeing. Corinne said people don't like to be told what to do. That is so true. It's better for them to be involved in the decision-making process around what they want to experiment with. Kim is saying experimenting is key, and I'm not saying the person's full name, my apologies, but yes, make it safe to fail. So as everyone is agreeing, it all goes back again to what we started off with. It's a whole psychological safety. It's about letting the team feel as if we don't have to get it right, but just the mere fact that we want to try and we can learn and then we can adjust as we go along makes a big difference when it is that you're trying to foster that kind of culture. But I wanted to start talking a little bit more about, so we know we're not operating in bubbles. As teams, irrespective of what your team is working on, you report to a stakeholder, you have the business who you're accountable to. So we know that when we have projects and initiatives, there are usually some time constraints or some constraints tied to it. And while working towards cross-functionality, it usually means that we're not going as fast. It may mean that we need to slow down a bit based on what it is that we're doing. So how do you balance that? Getting what you need to get done at the same time, delivering what you need to deliver on.
I think first off, it's about setting expectations with your stakeholders, you know, letting them know that we are working as a cross-functional team. We may slow down a little bit, but in the long run, being a cross-functional team, we may be able to produce faster and get things out to the stakeholders faster. And be clear about the priorities. Make sure that your priorities are in sync so that you're working on the most important things first. So the fact that you may be slowing down in the beginning, that's okay, because you were able to work on the most important things first, those things that offered the most business value to your clients, you were able to get that out first. So I think it's just being transparent and having those conversations with those stakeholders could go a long way.
Yeah, and in terms of the folks on the team who may be cross-training or learning something different, if you give them low-risk tasks or smaller, simpler tasks, then they can still be productive and contribute to the end goal, while probably the more senior people are working on the higher priority items, so that everyone feels like they are contributing to the end product. And so it's trying to draw that balance where you have expectations of what you need to deliver, but at the same time you want people to grow and to get that experience. So it's finding those things where people can learn, but at the same time allows you to reasonably deliver to your stakeholders at the same time. But like Lorraine was saying, transparency is key, because you don't want to be trying to work on helping these teammates and then you have your stakeholders here. It's like, why are you taking so long? What are you guys doing? Are you guys just twiddling your thumbs over there? So I think being transparent and letting them know that this is what is happening, it's not necessarily going to alleviate all the stress, but at least they have some understanding of what is happening.
Definitely. And so Shayinka has sent a message in the chat. She says, setting and negotiating expectations, saying this is what you can expect now based on the direction of the team, and this is how it will change once we have gotten a bit settled. Agree, we move along. Don't agree, what can we do to get to that middle ground where both parties can be comfortable? Very good point, Shayinka. And Cheryl says, agreed, managing expectations is key. Also being transparent to the team by sharing with them the strategic priorities and the expected value to be delivered facilitates buying and the need to create that balance. I feel like I want to hear a little bit more about your experience, Lorraine and Nicole, in terms of how do you even broach that topic with your stakeholders in terms of saying, okay, so perhaps within the next 4 weeks, we may not be going as fast as we usually do because we are looking to make sure that, as a team, irrespective of what may be thrown at us, we're able to, in the long run, deliver what needs to. What is a real conversation, or what has a real conversation looks like for you?
I would say in my experience with my stakeholders, having them involved even from the planning stage, just putting it out there. We may do some planning, some story mapping, and based on the staff or the resources that we have available, they're there and they're able to see it firsthand. This is our cadence. This is what we will be able to deliver, whether it be the next sprint, the next quarter, whatever the case may be. So have them involved in that conversation so they could see it for themselves. So it may not be just necessarily me speaking to the stakeholder, but it's like they're involved in the conversation with the whole team. And then they could see for themselves firsthand, like, okay, now I understand. Now I see why maybe this particular feature or outcome may take this amount of time.
Yeah, and it's really another reason for having a good understanding of what their high priority items are, right? So if we know that there are certain pieces that are critical for them, then we can ensure that those are the things that we're going to commit to getting done. So some other things that we're working on during the sprint might not make it to the finish line, but we want to ensure that the highest priority and the most critical pieces are the ones that are delivered. So having those prioritization conversations are key to drawing that balance with them. So that's usually part of the conversation in sprint planning in general, but it's even more critical when you're in this kind of situation where you're growing the cross functionality in a team, so that your stakeholders can still have confidence in having something delivered to them. It might not be everything that was originally planned, but the one they know that the most critical things for them will get delivered.
All right, so we have Corinne. Corinne says, I agree. And the team should maintain a measure of patience with stakeholders. They have a right to pivot and change their minds. Sometimes the stakeholders don't realize what they really want until they see an iteration. And I think most, if not all of us, are able to attest to that at some point based on what we work on. Laura has a question. Question is, what are some of the techniques you've used to be successful in situations when you can't have a needed skill on the team? For example, there aren't enough UI designers to have one on every team, and your product needs design.
I've come across this. Full disclosure, Laura is my Agile coach, so I'm laughing when I'm at this question. So I've seen it handled a few ways. In one situation, we were able to borrow a UI designer for a few sprints. That worked out well, and while they were working with the team, they were able to kind of do some cross training and knowledge transfer and kind of give that skill set to the team. So that worked out well. And then in another situation, going back to what I've said in the past, we had a limited resource on the UI side. So the one UI resource we did have has been doing some cross-functional tasks, having the other developers work on very small tasks, low-risk tasks. And that's been working out very well. They've been able to be involved in code reviews and even present their work in sprint reviews. So it's been working out very well.
Yeah, I mean, that is not unusual. So there are definitely a couple of different ways, but pretty much along the same lines of what Lorraine was talking about, where, you have UI kind of like as a service, where they are not sitting on as part of the team, but they come in to fulfill sort of like fulfilling a request, right? So this team one has a specific UI request that they need done, or team two has a specific UI request that they need done. And so they kind of float through the teams based on what they need. And this is, again, where priority comes into play, where, for all of those UI tasks that need to happen, who is on the top of the pile, so that because this UI person is shared across teams, they are prioritizing the work that they need to do for these teams based on those needs. But if you have it in kind of like what I think of as an enablement person, so an enablement UI person, where they feel part of their job is not only fulfilling that request, but also providing some training to the team to better understand the UI, and so that they can be somewhat self-sufficient. I'm not saying all the way self-sufficient, but they are learning some of it along the way while the UI person is fulfilling their request.
All right. Just take a quick time check. We are just under 10 minutes and we want to wrap at 6 because we know that we're all busy people. So if there are any other questions, I'm going to ask you to drop them in the chat right now as well. Shayinka had sent a message to say it's also important to communicate any deviations from the plan early. Yes, we set priorities, but things happen along the way that can change the course of action. Communicating these changes early helps to ease the mind of stakeholders as they see that their teams are proactive and they know before the demo that a particular item they were looking forward to may not be ready and the team is actively working to get it out. So again, the whole notion of complete transparency makes no sense for you not to be transparent and open about what is happening on the teams. All right, so while I check to see if there are any further questions, one quick one. Is there a right time to start helping a team towards becoming cross-functional?
Anytime's a good time. There's no right time. Just like there's no right time to take vacation, there's no right time to start working on being a cross-functional team. You just have to dive in there and get it going. It'll probably not look very pretty in the beginning, but that's just part of the process. And just if you go in with the understanding that it's not going to be perfect and there's going to be some kinks you're going to have to work out, then at least everybody knows that they don't have to get it right the first time, but they have to keep trying.
I see Cheryl agreeing with you. There's no right time. All the time it's the right time, pretty much. And our last question for today is encouraging cross-functionality only applicable to Agile teams?
I would say no. We all work on teams of some sort. Nobody works in a silo. So no matter what your industry is, I know there's some people on the call from marketing and other engineering. There's other industries here. Yeah, you could start very small, working with your teams, and it could start with you. You could maybe take the initiative to do like a knowledge share. Maybe there's a colleague that that could benefit from something that you're familiar with, and vice versa. So I think any industry, any area could be cross-functional.
All right, perfect. So someone says, I'm sorry, I feel like if I try to pronounce your name, I am going to do a really bad job. Think of the future of the product and what skills are needed to sustain or grow it, and start training to build the skill sets you'll need. Definitely. And I see Laura saying, moms know that being cross-functional is essential.
Yeah.
Okay. Bandily rhymes with mandally. Okay, so it's bandily. Okay, all right. Thanks for that lesson. Cheryl also says, if you want to build high-performing teams, cross-functional skill sets are critical, and we definitely agree. And Shayinka says, most pieces of work need multiple hands to get it to the door. Amen. Think of the people, the skills you need, and get them together the best way you can. And on that note, I'm going to turn over to Chantal to just wrap within the next 3 minutes. But thank you very much for facilitating our conversation by sending your questions. We really appreciate it. I know Chantal is going to ask as well if there's anybody who's interested in also being a speaker, one of our guests, so that we can have another conversation like this very soon. We enjoyed your company and we hope you also enjoyed ours and you picked up a few things. I'll turn it over to Chantal now. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you all. Thank you to our speakers as well for spending the time with us and sharing from their own experiences. So I'll quickly ask, just as a quick networking activity, if you want to drop your LinkedIn handles or LinkedIn links in the chat below so that we can all connect after this, you can go ahead and do that. as Nicola said, if you're interested in presenting one of our future link ups, you can reach out to myself or Nicola on LinkedIn via DMs and let us know. We will happily take anyone who is interested in being one of our guest speakers. And don't forget, tell a friend so that the next time that we have another link up, we have a little bit more persons who are involved in the conversation as we try to spread the word about Agile and the benefits it has for anyone who is interested in learning about it. Once the meeting has ended, a survey will pop up on your screen. It's about 4 quick questions. If you can, spend some time and just give us a little feedback so we know how exactly we can improve this event as we move forward. We thank you so much once again for your time, and we hope to see you guys soon. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. This was great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice job, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
This was great. Super proud of you. Looking forward to the next
Thank
one.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
This was
Bye,
great.
guys.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.